Welcome back to the SHL Network YouTube here for episode number 5 of the Scholastic Sit Down. Happy to have you here as always. To the left of me or right, whether one way or another you're seeing it on your screen, Dylan Ward is my partner as usual. My name is Luke Jordan, and it is just a great time of the year. It is the start of October, October 6th, as we are recording this. We are starting to get into the deeper bit of the SHL season. Everybody's now played a game. And outside of that, a lot of fun too. Cubs in the playoffs. Hawks start Tuesday night against the defending Stanley Cup champion Panthers. There's just so much to follow. Keeps us busy, Dylan.
Yeah, it's a well-known saying, October is the best month for sports, and it's spot on, not to mention we've got MLS playoffs coming up. If any
Yeah,
of you
Fire made it.
Chicago Fire fans out there, they're in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. You said football, college football, basketball starting up too, NBA. So it's going to be a fun time. And I just want to address the elephant in the room real quick before we get too deep into it. You are probably seeing this episode one day after last episode was published because there was an error on YouTube, and hand up my bad. That's on me. I accidentally made last week's episode private instead of public. So while we did record it last week, it did not go live on YouTube until Monday, October 6th, the day we are recording this. So we do definitely apologize for that. And that'll be the last time that happens.
Yeah, we'll make sure it doesn't happen again, and plenty more episodes to go. So I guess you get a bit of an off week, and now you get a double header, whatever it may
There you
be.
go.
But without further ado, let's get straight into it. We had some really fun SHL games over this past week. We did talk about New Trier and Lake Forest last week, but we'll just quickly highlight the score once again just because of last episode. So Lake Forest did knock down the top dog Trevians by a score of 3-1 at home. It was a sensational game. Got to give a lot of credit to Logan Marsh, who stopped a ton of shots. The exact number 26 on 27. He was listed the first star of the game. Michael Catalano the second. Callum Eggers the third. And now we look at the scores of this week, this past active week, where we start Thursday, October 2nd. It was Carmel back in action, and my goodness, their offense really found a spark. A team that lost 9-0 to Loyola comes back in this one. They take on the Lake Forest Scouts, who have had some great wins themselves, and they double them. 6-3 win for the Corsairs. Multiple Corsairs with 3 points. Ryan Farley and Ryan DiNapoli. Double Ryan right there. Alessandro Colodi with 32 saves as well. This is a big win and a big first win for the Carmel Corsairs, Dylan.
Yeah, and in previous years, this Lake Forest Carmel matchup has kind of, you know, for lack of a better term, been sort of in the basement of the standings, right? And they're kind of fighting for that last playoff position. But for Carmel, this win has got to be a massive confidence boost because all these guys know that this Lake Forest team just beat New Trier Green 3 nights before this, and you're able to beat them by 3 goals tonight. The shots on goal, 35-35. Ryan DiNapoli with the Michigan in this one,
Yeah.
as we saw on the SHL Instagram. A nice move as always, and yeah, just a statement win for the Carmel Corsairs as they respond to their first 2 games being outscored by 9 goals in each of those
Yep.
first 2 games, and then beating Lake Forest, who is emerging as a top team in the state this year.
Yeah. I mean, you can't just go out there and play the same brand of hockey every game and it shows. I mean, Carmel losing to Loyola 9-0. They lost to St. Viator 10-1. Mind you, Lake Forest beat St. Viator and they go in and they beat Lake Forest by a field goal. So I don't even know how to explain how this one even happens, but the Corsairs definitely bounce back, and I think they can turn that into some momentum as that will carry us into the last weekend we saw, starting off with the classic Friday night at Addison. Doesn't get any better than that, but for York, they were hoping to better their offense and defense as Glenbrook South ended up taking this one. Now, Dylan, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm seeing two scores here on the game sheet. I'm seeing a 4-2 and now 5-2. It was 5-2, correct?
It was 5-2, and
Interesting.
I'll say game sheet has been a little bit glitchy to start the year, and for any of you guys that don't know, the SHL, when you go on the website and look at the final scores, it's embedded from another service game sheet. It is not the SHL's service. So if there are any glitches, it's not our fault, it's their fault. But as the season picks up a little bit more, and I know the NAHL uses game sheet now too, those glitches are definitely going to be fixed. But yes, the final score of this one was indeed 5-2.
Now, my question, Dylan, are the shots on goal true? 45 to 18 York?
Yeah,
My
that's
goodness.
true.
How about that
So
for Thomas Preston?
yeah, Thomas Preston. I was there at that one, watched it in person, and that is maybe the best performance I have seen Thomas Preston have in his young high school hockey career. Now a sophomore, made waves on varsity as a freshman as the number one starter for the Glenbrook South Titans, and he made some 10 bell saves in this one. GBS went out to a 2-0 lead after the first period and they pretty much never looked back. In spite of being outplayed, when they built up that lead, they kind of just carried it through till the end of the game. They scored a fifth goal on with 2 minutes left. It was not an empty netter, but that just kind of gave them some insurance. Each team with a power play goal in this one, and the Titans, who are currently ranked number one in the state on my hockey rankings, are you got to think they're looking to defend that title as long as they possibly can. And they start off the SHL season with a victory.
Yeah, 10 different Titans in the score sheet in this one. A spread out win amidst only 18 shots, and they find them by the Dukes. As into Saturday, York would play again. We'll get to that one in a second. A thriller on a Saturday night in Chicago. But first, GBN and St. Viator. Viator starting to pick up heat, starting to really show the state who they really are. And how about Calder Turpin with a 14 save shutout? Viator wins this one 4-0 with two power play goals.
Yeah, two power play goals, two goals by Colton Newhouse, Connor Sebitroff, and Ryan Loftus get on the board as well. Loftus already with his fifth goal of the SHL season. And yeah, I mean, this is just St. Viator kind of proving who what a lot of people anticipated from them as being a number one team in the state. Glenbrook North, this was only their second game of the SHL season, pardon me, third game, and it made them fall to 1-2. So the defending SHL champion of last year, sort of off to a bit of a rocky start to this year's SHL season, but they played some tough opponents in the likes of New True Green and now St. Viator, which they dropped both those games.
If you erase that one loss for St. Viator against Lake Forest where they allowed 4 goals, other than that, they played 3 games, they've won them all, and they've only allowed 1 goal over those 3 games, 2 of them shutouts, one against Stevenson and one against GBN. So Calder Turpin starting to catch fire, reminiscent of the graduated Brock Hare for sure, and he's showing it. As the other game on Saturday was between York and St. Ignatius at Fifth Third Arena. This game was sensational, just a pure tennis match, and St. Ignatius had no quit. This game seemed to have been over. York put things away. Mitch Fafinski with an empty netter with 136 to go. Okay, game's over, right? No. Grayson Rizzuti scores with exactly 60 seconds to go. And then Sam Reeve at the buzzer. Sam Reeve proceeds to go into overtime and get the OT winner. Now, granted, I did not get to watch any film of this game, but this is a box score, let alone that leaves you ecstatic. And I mean, from what we've talked about so far this season, this is the game of the year up to this point. That was incredible by St. Ignatius, an incredible comeback victory. They win this one 5-4 at home.
Luke, is no doubt in my mind that you are spot on with that game of the year so far. I actually was able to catch a little bit of Butch Connolly's stream of this game. And boy, Luke, each team had a huge student section in this one as well. If that just, makes it even more exciting. I mean, you said it. How often do you score an empty net goal to get yourself up by two and then still go on to lose the game? York does get the OTL point. This moved their record to 1-1-1. But St. Ignatius, man, I mean, 1 second left when Sam Reef scored. According to the official game clock, it was 0.4 when that
Wow.
puck went in. And he follows it up by scoring in overtime. I mean, to score with zero point 0.4 seconds left to tie a game, that alone is, you know, enough to just give you that massive adrenaline rush and make you feel pretty good about yourself. How about scoring the game-winning goal after the fact?
Yeah, and their weekend was not finished either. We would turn into Sunday. One more thing you wanted to add on that game as well before my game sheet just exploded before we go into the Sunday games.
Yeah, Luke, if you look at the shots on goal in this one, St. Ignatius outshoots York 35 to 21. How about this? In the third period, 17 to 1 were the shots on goal for St. Ignatius.
Wow.
York's one shot on goal, their empty net tally. So Nick Nocera in net does not make a single save in the third period, and the St. Ignatius defense absolutely locked up this York side, and that really led to their victory.
Yeah, that's insane. That's why I love period by period shot totals because they just flip the head of a coin sometimes, and that's a pretty drastic one. St. Ignatius with a big win, 5-4, as we mentioned once again, a three-goal third period from Iggy, as they'd play one more on Sunday. But before we get to that one, how about another thriller? Lake Forest hosting Loyola in the early evening on Sunday at Alumni Memorial Fieldhouse. This one only involved four true goals. It was 2-2 after regulation, where it ended up going into a three-round shootout, and Lake Forest comes away with this one. They get a goal from Tommy Esplin in the shootout, 3-2 victory, a big one. Another big win for Lake Forest, who, by the way, is 3-3 at this moment, but their three wins have been against Loyola, New Trier, and St. Viator, arguably the top three in the state and in the preseason rankings. I mean, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, right. Wins against Viator, Loyola, and New Trier, and losses to Stevenson, Carmel, and St. Ignatius. Kind of an interesting little situation there. But Luke, for the second night in a row, we had a game tying goal in the final minute. Pearson Daverman knots this one up at two with 48 seconds to go in the third period. Nothing in overtime after the shots in the extra session were 2-2. And then you said it in what was three rounds of a shootout. The game-winning goal was scored by Tommy Esplin and Lake Forest, man. They are slowly emerging. I said it earlier in the podcast, emerging themselves as a top contender in the state of Illinois. And if they can keep this hot streak going, you never know what the Scouts can do in what is now their fourth season as members of the SHL.
Yeah, and how about you take away that last minute in each period for Loyola, and they don't score any goals. They had Peter Lochnicki score their first goal of the game with 5 seconds left in the first, and then, as you said, Pearson Daverman with 48 seconds to go in the third. They do still grab a point from that one, but Lake Forest moves to 3-3 with a big victory there. St. Ignatius would play another one Sunday night, once again in Chicago, same start time against Glenbrook South this time instead. Another really good game. It ended up 6-3, but that is including an empty netter from James Erdis at the end. Whereas another tennis match type game until it wasn't. It was 2-1 St. Ignatius after the first. Then they found another two, made it 4-1. But GBS did not quit. Asher Vanderplug and Charlie Preston get on the board. But in the end, Grayson Rizzuti had a sweet goal with just about 5 minutes to play in that one. And that ended up really being the dagger to put St. Ignatius away with another win. So after losing their first, they have now won four in a row. It is a big start to the season for St. Ignatius, who is currently at the top of the SHL standings as we speak in points.
Yeah, top of the SHL standings, not to mention 5-0 in the CCHL as well. So they've built up what is a 9-1 record on the overall season. They were up 4-1. As you mentioned, GBS came back within one. It looked like they were building up some momentum, but just couldn't find that game tying goal on a couple of good chances. And then Grayson Rizzuti really put it away with 4 minutes left and made it a two-goal game. GBS pulls their goalie, James Erdis scores into the empty net. And yeah, no power play goals in this one. Or pardon me, Edmund Burke did score on the power play for St. Ignatius, but overall, GBS, even though they were only 1-0, was the last standing undefeated team. And Luke, we, posted about this on the Instagram. It's only October 5th as of last night, and every team in the league has at least a win and at least a loss. So, no undefeated teams and no winless teams remain already.
Yeah, and it's a perfect transition because you know who I want to figure out when the last time, or I want to see how early this is compared to other seasons that each team has a win and a loss because it just feels like the parity is ridiculous. I don't think talking October 5th that every team will have won and lost an SHL game. Nobody's
Usually New Trier
unbeaten.
doesn't lose till November or
Yeah,
December. So
exactly. So, anyway, Sam, get on that, and we're going to talk to you here on the Scholastic Sit Downs podcast. Sam Schwartz, our special guest. Here with the special guest here on episode 5 of the Scholastic Sit Down, Sam Schwartz, the mastermind behind all of the stats, you name it, the power rankings that we'll get to talk a little bit about. How we doing today, Sam?
We're doing great. Always a pleasure to be here on the Scholastic Sit Down for 2 years in a row.
Yeah, second straight year we've had Sam. We always have him early
Yep.
on in the year to talk about just numbers and what goes into everything he does because it's something behind the scenes that people don't really acknowledge. They probably just think, oh, it's a computer that's run all these stats. No, it is a human, believe it or not, up to this point. So yeah, Sam's job might be replaced eventually, but not for this season. So Sam, I want to talk about the power rankings and that they have most likely came out by the time this first power rankings came out by the time this episode was out, most likely. I want you to kind of, and I know you didn't use it this week, but the algorithm that you use is kind of unique and not a lot of leagues use it or anything at least at this level to whereas a lot of people just think you're going, yep, by opinion, this goes here, this goes there, this goes there. But there's actually really equations and all that good math stuff that I don't like behind it. So drop us into that.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting thing, especially because here I didn't really use any algorithm because you've got all sorts of variability in teams. You've got on one spectrum the Stevenson Patriots who played within 6 days, they played 4 games to start the season. Whereas Glenbrook South, only towards the end of the third week of the season do they only get to play their first game. So teams have different sorts of sample sizes, and an algorithm isn't necessarily, first of all, it's far from perfect. It just started as a fun little project I made, and now somehow it's a thing for a league. But so I kind of just put it on paper and kind of just looked and thought where things go where, and still I don't think we haven't posted it as of this moment in time of the recording. It'll probably be out by the time this gets published, but it's really hard to tell. I mean, when I hear power rankings, I'm thinking of who's playing the best hockey. It's different than the standings. Who's the best team? That's a mathematical, a straightforward representation. This team's won this many games. They've got this many standings points. That's exactly determinate of who gets a playoff spot. Everyone knows that. Playoff rank or power rankings, rather. I mean, since it's 3 weeks in and we do kind of want to have it as a weekly edition, it is kind of tough because there's two different interpretations. We can have one of, well, who's playing the best hockey right now we're recording this October 7th, where Ignatius just beat GBS and what was it, Loyola? What did Loyola do? They lost to Lake
They lost like
Forest
Forest, yeah.
yeah, in either overtime or shootout. I treat those the same. Where you can also say that, yeah, Stevenson did beat Lake Forest. That's also after losing to York, Fighter, Ignatius, GBN, Carmel. So do you put those dates relative to each other? Because in a normal week, each team's playing no more than 2 or even 3 games. Playing 4 games in a single week is pretty unheard of. And it's more fluid there. So what we put out here, and again, it's all up to interpretation. It's not Sam Schwartz determining who gets what playoff seed. That's all off the standings. I'm just a guy who puts a thing
Right.
on a page and people apparently think it's valid. But that's the fun part of it.
Yeah, and power rankings is just the tip of the iceberg into what you do. And Luke hinted at it. You do so much with the website and media-wise, you've worked a lot with us on the broadcast for graphics. And on top of that, you just do a lot of, behind the scenes stuff that no one really knows. So for those of you watching that don't know what it is Sam does, Sam, why don't you just kind of give a general rundown of your role in the Scholastic Hockey League?
Yeah, so first off, any number you see on the website, is that how many goals a team has scored? How many shots on goal did that team have? Who scored the goal? Any stat that goes into there, anything sports information related, I probably am responsible for. I mean, parents generally, some teams actually pay their scorekeepers, which is nice because they do a thorough job. We have most of our parents do a good job, but unfortunately, when you're not paying someone, they're only so motivated, especially when they've got their own kid out there on the ice. That's just the
Yeah.
reality, and that's what we got to work with. So just kind of making sure everything gets standardized and making sure that everything's accurate. Everything on the website, obviously, Scholastic Hockey League is great in that they get so much coverage. And a lot of players go on to play at higher levels. We've had a couple D1 players over the years. We get plenty of ACHA. A couple guys go to juniors. And the stats the coaches are seeing, they better be accurate. If we're going to be broadcasting games, I won't spoil it too much, but we may or may not have a thing going on with Marquee Sports Network at some point in the next year or coming years. And if something's going to be on regional sports television, you won't see a Cubs game with inaccurate stats. We have to
Hmm.
treat it the same way.
Yeah.
Um, and so that yeah, that's what we do. I also dabble in some of the graphics you see on our broadcasts, dealing with just more of the technical stuff, but that's not fun. Well, I enjoy it, but um, yeah, it's just numbers and it's great. It promotes the league and hopefully just promotes interest for everyone else.
Yeah.
Sam, I'll
Well,
cut you off there. Luke, before you ask your next question, I think you forgot one thing that you do where you're actually
Oh,
on site with the microphone. So I think that's a big part of what you do as well.
yeah, it's been I'll actually, well, depending on the date of this publishing, the Vide or Pink the Rink, that'll be my first official hockey game on the mic this year. So yeah, I do the PA announcing and the music, which is fun. We actually have more teams doing it. But when you go to a game and not the voice suit, not Dylan or Luke going, he shoots, he scores, what a goal, and so and so takes the lead. But I may be the voice you hear in the stadium going 1 minute to play in the period, or Stevenson goal scored by. I couldn't even have a name come to my mind, unfortunately, but Yurkov, scored by Sean Yurkov. He was the Michigan guy.
Yeah, it was.
So I do a lot of that. It's very fun, makes the games interesting. I enjoy it.
Dylan, thanks for the alley-oop because my next question was actually going to be in that time of public address, you've done a ton of big games here in the SHL over your time here, always doing the Thanksgiving Eve between GBS and GBN. Is there a specific game that just kind of pops out to you and you will always remember that game forever, just from a viewing standpoint or from a working standpoint that you're just gonna forever have there?
Well, so my I'll give two. They're not necessarily SHL games, but
That's all right.
well, number one was my professional debut with the Syracuse Crunch while I was in Syracuse. Shout out to them because it's my favorite call. You call the penalty as normal. Luke Jordan, 2 minutes tripping at 7:22. Demand is respect. Penalize neglect with Nicholas per. I'm not looking at it right now. Anyway, you end it with it's a Crunch Lamachia Honda power play, and you get to hold it out, and everyone does it with you. It's a very fun crowd interaction. My other game was
Cool.
with Syracuse women's hockey, where the scoreboard went out, and I
Oh,
had to be. So did the audio music, so I had to literally be the scoreboard and including counting down the final few seconds. And I remember they scored an overtime winner in the final second, and the game was put under protest because they thought that I saw that Syracuse on a rush in the final seconds that I was holding off the clock somehow. Those are my two all-time
Wow.
favorites. But those are because they just hold personal significance to me and they're funny. When it comes to the SHL, it's usually the second or third meeting for New Trier Loyola, where they always end up going to overtime. Last year, we actually had the game on Marquee Sports Network.
my
Dylan, I
gosh,
believe
what a
you
game.
were running the clock with me.
Yeah, yeah, we were
Um,
hanging out down there. You doing the PA, I was doing the clock.
I'm pretty sure that was the fourth year in a row where New Trier and Loyola have played each other after the new year, like well after 8:30 p.m. on a weeknight. And that game, I think 3 of the 4 years has gone to overtime. And last year, meaning 2024, January 2024, I want to say it was Jack Hirschtritt, could be off on that, scoring a game winner with like a minute to go. And then they
Yeah.
scored another empty netter. That series is always amazing, but all the games are great. I'm lucky that, the games I go to usually aren't blowouts. So as long as it's a good game and there's a good crowd, it's always a win.
Yeah, and really quickly, Sam, about that Pink in the Rink game. I mean, yes, promoting it, but I'm just curious, when is that?
So that's this Saturday. I believe the varsity game will start at 7 p.m. I'm pulling it up here. And they're going to be going against, it looks like they've got Lake
Believe Lake
Forest,
Forest,
which,
right? Yep.
Yeah,
yeah, it is Lake Forest. And,
gonna be a
you
good game.
know, I know some of these high schools in other sports, they'll pick a big, significant game to be, like their senior nights. They'll pick it against what they believe is a winnable opponent because, they want to get their seniors time. This obviously isn't a senior night, but if anybody thought at the start of the year, oh, it's Lake Forest, we're honoring people, we're making this is a good cause, we want to get people out, and of course we want to win. That's not a guarantee this year. This is
No.
Lake Forest we're talking about. This is the
Not at all.
25-26 Scouts.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
they're
pumped to see them in person Wednesday again. I mean, they've been playing really good, so. But Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, Sam, this will be my last question, but last year the three of us actually did something really cool. We did a state playoff bracket reveal show where we went through each of the divisions and revealed all of the seeds one by one and kind of broke that down. That was a really cool experience for me, and I'm sure for everyone else here in this call. But you were the ringleader behind making that happen. So, what I want to know, kind of, how did that come to be, and what do you have planned for? We're a little bit away, but any preliminary plans for this season?
I mean, we're gonna try and build off of it. There's a lot of things going in the works. And as we get closer, we'll definitely be looking at the details. The motivation was pretty much this. Normally, there's just an email that goes out saying, "Hey, by the way, brackets out." That's not fun. That's just an email. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a big college basketball, college football nut. Specifically, anyone knows Selection Sunday when they announce the NCAA tournament. It's what, about an hour show. And I wanted to kind of pull from that. I wanted to get everybody in high school hockey together for one night because it would affect every team directly. And I think if anyone remembers the blooper where I just had like four bracket spots completely off and you had to correct me. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh my
I,
God,
I ripped the
classic.
paper in half. But
Absolutely.
we had fun with it. And when I said my favorite moments, this isn't PAing because this was more broadcasting, because to me those are two different things. When I think of some of the coolest projects and games I've done, that was definitely one of my favorites. Just events to be a part of. And of course, you and Dylan, Luke and Dylan, sorry, Luke's face is on my screen right now, so I feel like I'm talking to him. Dylan's just a little bit on the top of my screen because that's how Zoom
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, I'm vertical
Um,
today, so
you
I
guys were the
understand.
first names that came into mind, along with Max, who wasn't available. And obviously we killed it. And Gerard Boris, obviously, this would not have happened without him. Zach Lieberman too, who I believe is yeah, he's at Kansas now. It was a pretty small staff production, but man, we
Yeah.
got a heck of a job done.
That was a lot of fun. I'll never forget ripping the paper in half. And I think it's just really cool. You've already played so much hockey together with your team, but then to really just like a lot of these teams were at a venue or at somebody's house, just being more of a family
Yes.
and getting to kind of sit around the campfire and watch something like that. So I think we brought teams even closer with something like that. It was an all around win for everybody. Super cool project. Only thing that lost was the piece of paper that Sam was holding. So. I
Never,
mean,
never forget.
but anyways, that'll do it with our special guest here. So, Sam, thank you for your time as always. And if you ever have an issue with the power rankings, this is the guy to attack. Just letting you guys know. So,
Yeah.
no, he does a great job. So, thanks as always, Sam, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. You too.
That was our segment with Sam Schwartz. Big thanks for having him on for the second straight year. It's kind of nice to just have a genuine conversation about the state of the SHL and also kind of just pick his brain about all he does because he's not just a one trick pony for sure and a friend of ours as well. So we want to thank him as always, Dylan.
Absolutely. It's great to talk to Sam. We do it all the time when we're not recording, but now I mean, you guys have probably heard the name Sam Schwartz here and there, but yeah, no harder working guy for the SHL.
That will bring us to our outside the SHL segment. To whereas we'll start with the game of the week from last week. Now, granted, you might have just heard about it. I'm still going to recap it anyway because it was sensational. But the week before that, I picked Chicago North and Prep. It was an 8-2 game. I felt bad. Wasn't a game of the week. I got my swagger back. That's for sure. I picked a
Okay.
CCHL matchup here between Providence Catholic and Brother Rice, a Sunday night here at the Arctic Championship rink, and Providence Catholic at home outshot opened up with a 2-0 lead, and then James Esposito in the second and third found a goal of his own. We saw him last year in the SHL CCHL All-Star game. He looked good, and he's looking good so far this season. He would tie up the game with 37 seconds left to bring us to overtime, whereas it was a back and forth overtime until Nicholas Coveney scores his fourth goal of the CCHL season with a minute and 17 to go in overtime. A sensational overtime thriller as Providence Catholic wins this one 3-2 amidst being outshot by 10. How about their netminder, Drew Spencer, stopping 39 out of 41 in this game? And I think I might have picked if not for St. Ignatius York, this was the game of the week outside of the SHL, and I'm proud to have nailed it for once this season. So
Yeah, Luke, you definitely did nail it. So we could say you're 1 for 2 now. So I'm looking forward to seeing what your outside the SHL game of the week will be this week.
yep, and without further ado, let's check the standings in each league. We go through the North Central Division of the IHSHL, the Chicago Catholic League, the Illinois West Hockey League, and the Metro Girls High School League. In the IHSHL North Central, it's still Deerfield at the top, really good so far in conference play. They have a 4-0 record there alongside 6 power play goals. That's the best unit in the North Central up to this point. Prep is on their tail, 3-1. Chicago North in third, Notre Dame in fourth, Ice Cats in fifth, with BJHW creeping on the outside. They've only played 2 games, and they're 2-0 up to this point. In the Chicago Catholic League, it is currently still St. Ignatius on the top. As we mentioned, Dylan, 5-0 in CCHL play, outscoring their opponents 31-8 for a differential of plus 23. Nobody else has a plus minus better than 7, and that's Brother Rice, who's only played 2 games and lost one in overtime. Fenwick's in second, Providence Catholics in third, Brother Rice is in fourth, Notre Dame is in fifth. Over to the West League. Maine now jumps ahead of Hinsdale Central for the top of the West lead. It was Hinsdale Central with a 3-0 record last week. That was atop the standings. A big one to note considering they really haven't been that good the last few seasons. Well, they've turned it around, but Maine, always a top dog in the West. They jump out in front 4-0. Hinsdale Central is still second. The Warriors, defending state champions, are third. Naperville's fourth, and DuPage is fifth. Lastly, in the Metro Girls High School League, they are still in their tiering. And York, how about this? The York Dukes girls program in their first year here are 3-0 so far. Glenbrook 3-0 as well. The two teams still unbeaten at the top. There is still one other unbeaten team if you want to count them. It's Lake Forest Academy, but they haven't played a game yet. So in the top 5, it's York, Glenbrook, Naper Valley, Lake Forest, and then Burlington Central. The defending state champ New Trier Trevine's girls team is currently 2-2 and just outside of that top 5 window. To our game of the week. I think you can't really go wrong with this one. It's two unbeaten teams out in the Illinois West. It's a classic rivalry. It's a Saturday night at Oakton where Maine tends to really pack a student section. I know Glenbard has only played 1 game, but still, it's a battle of the unbeaten. Maine and Glenbard combining for a record of 5-0 up to this point. Literally never lets you down between these two, and it should be a fun one without a doubt. We'll see if Maine keeps their unbeaten streak going. Saturday, 6:30 at Oakton, our Outside the SHL game of the week. As that will do it for our Outside the S segment, let's now look into the future of the SHL schedule for this week. So now a look at our SHL schedule for this week. We've got 8 games. It's the most out of any week we've covered, obviously making sense with everybody really getting into the thick of action now. Starting on Wednesday, 9:10 p.m. at Winnetka Ice Arena, it is New Trier hosting Lake Forest, unlike last week where Lake Forest hosted New Trier and quote-unquote upset them with a 3-1 victory up north in Lake Forest. A chance at revenge for the Trevians, trying to improve their record to 2-1. Lake Forest, meanwhile, trying to get over the hump of 500, currently 3-3. And this is an unpredictable one. I use that word so often, but Lake Forest beat New Trier. I don't think a lot of us expected that. The question is, do they do it again?
Well, Luke, I feel like when a lot of people saw that score, they were wondering if it was a fluke, but I would say no because they also beat Vider and Loyola. And so this is a huge, huge game to start off the week of play for SHL. And you wouldn't, coming into the season, you might not say Lake Forest New Trier is a huge game, but based on what happened and based on how Lake Forest has been trending, I think it is. And for New Trier, this is game one of 4 games in 5 nights this week in the SHL. So if they can get off to a good start, they'll be looking to carry that momentum ahead to their other games.
On Thursday, it is New Trier once again, another late night game at home. They switch home rinks this time from Winnetka Ice Arena to North Shore Ice Arena. They take on St. Ignatius. This is two teams near the top of the table, each only suffering one loss on the season. Now, they did already meet back on September 14th. New Trier won that one 3-1, but it was a tight one without a doubt, having the shots on goal only two shots apart, 29-27. And it was New True who did jump out to a 3-0 lead, but still a good fight here. And St. Ignatius also drew a lot of penalties against New Trier last time. Just got to try to turn those into special teams goals this time around. But it's gonna be a good game, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it is right. And this is starting to become a bit of a rivalry now. St. Ignatius in their third year as SHL members, but two teams that have always kind of been in that top 10, maybe even top five in the state year after year. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in their second meeting. You know, St. Ignatius, who is feeling hot right now, is going to try and carry some of that momentum into New Trier and maybe catch them on the a little bit tired on the second leg of a back-to-back at 9 p.m.
Yeah, back to back on late nights is not ideal as somebody who formerly played, but I'm also probably not as well conditioned as some of those New Trier guys or any guys in the S for that matter, especially nowadays. So we'll see how they match up in that one. Going over to Friday, it's a Friday night at Addison. The York Dukes currently 1-2, host the St. Viator Lions, and their fiery offense currently averaging 5.5 goals a game so far, primarily behind Ryan Loftus, who is at nearly 3 points a game, 9-4, and he's been the core of this offense. St. Viator in general, we talk about their returners, and it's not always the case that if you return a lot of players, you're going to be good. No, it's they didn't only return a lot of players; they returned some of their best players. And Loftus, Civic Trout, Priswara have already made that statement early on this season.
Yeah, and for York, after winning their first game of SHL play, then having a long layoff between that and their second game just last Friday, they're going to want to right the ship and get a victory at home. And if they can against the St. Viator team, it would be a huge victory against a team that's projected to be one of the best in the state in the early going. So this should be a pretty exciting matchup, and I'm looking forward to seeing the result of this one.
Once again, 7:10 p.m. at Addison Ice Arena on Friday night. So back to it here on Saturday. We have three games. It's the most occupied day of the week for SHL hockey, having three, and it starts at 6:10 p.m. at American Heartland Ice Arena Loyola with a home game against Glenbrook North. Two defenses that should be fun to see, and Loyola, especially with Charlie Trapp, we haven't seen much of them, but they're 1-1 up to this point. They had that 9-0 win against Carmel that was kind of a statement, and then they proceeded to lose to Lake Forest in a shootout. But Carmel beat Lake Forest, so it's just been a whole shuffle up. Don't know what edition of Loyola we'll see in this one.
Yeah, and for Loyola, they are no team in the SHL is undefeated anymore. They are the only team undefeated in regulation, as their one loss came in the shootout. So, they'll be looking to right the ship against a Glenbrook North team who's had a little bit of a rocky start to the year.
Later at 7, it is Lake Forest and St. Viator. Once again, it's the Lions who seek revenge. It is a week where Lake Forest will already have played two opponents twice. They have New Trier during the week, and then they have the Lions later here on Saturday. They beat them 4-3 last time, September 14th, in what was a thriller as the Scouts walked away with that one at home. This time they're back at Mount Prospect Ice Arena. It was an all-around great game from Logan Marsh last time. He stopped 30 out of 33. The Scouts were outshot by 16, but they still walked away with the win. It's going to be tough to beat a really good team like St. Viator twice, but we'll see what they do, Dylan.
Yeah, we will see. And then Lake Forest has obviously proven that they can take down some of the top teams in the state. And, a big week for them in terms of their opponents. And, Luke, if they can come away with two victories this week, I think the case is a very fair case to make that they could go on to win the state championship and end up being
Mhm.
a team to look out for.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't say any better than that. If you have beaten the best already, that makes one case. And yes, your losses don't help, but if you can show that it is not a quote unquote fluke, and we are not calling
Right.
it that because we've seen them beat multiple good teams, but if you can just show the public that and win a season series against either New Trier or St. Viator, I think that's a huge statement for the Scouts. We'll see what they do there. New Trier, speak of the devil, is on the road 8:20 at Twin Rinks against Stevenson, a Saturday night affair where definitely leaning towards New Trier in this one, but you can't rule out Stevenson either. They have some pretty balanced stats for being 1-4. They've got Jason Pashenko, who's been off to a great start. He's recorded a hat trick in one of the 5 games for Stevenson. But I mean, you can't lie. It is the Trevians with the edge here. But we'll see how the Patriots use their home advantage on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's another later start. It's no 9 p.m., but it is 8:20, but on a Friday night at an away rink for New Trier. And yeah, Stevenson dropped their first 4 games of the season, but won most recently. So they'll look to build a streak if they can. It's not going to be easy against New Trier, but this is a New Trier team that they had a miraculous victory over last season. So again, any given night in the SHL, man, you just never know.
Yeah, it's gonna be quite a Saturday. 3 games once again, 6:10, 7 o'clock, and 8:20. Expect to see you guys out at one of those. I know that I personally will be at New Trier Stevenson, having being working with the Trevian Hockey Network now, as we'll be doing the one of the JV games before that as well. So be a busy Saturday and then into Sunday. Oh my goodness! I mean, these are the games of the week right here, Dylan. It's what's what. It's 6:40 p.m. Loyola takes on St. Ignatius down in Chicago, and then 7 p.m. New Trier's on the road at St. Viator at Mount Prospect Ice Arena. And I'm just gonna go out and call dibs real quick on New Trier and St. Viator as my game of the week. I mean, this Sunday is stacked, and I'm almost upset that the games aren't separated by time. I mean, yeah, they're 20 minutes apart, but you can't be in two places at once. And this is a Sunday where you'd want to be in two places at once, or you'd want to watch 2 games at once, which you can do. But man, this Sunday, it's gonna be something, Dylan.
Yeah, you can. Both these games will be live streamed, Trevian Hockey Network, and then Butch Connolly for St. Ignatius. But yeah, just a pair of absolute, I have no idea what to expect. It's New Trier and St. Viator's first meeting of the season, and that's sure to bring some fireworks. Loyola and St. Ignatius is built into a really interesting rivalry here in the SHL here in St. Ignatius's third season as members, and they had some really entertaining games last year between one another. So, Luke, you take New Trier St. Viator as your game of the week. I'll go ahead and take Loyola and St. Ignatius as my game of the week here on Sunday. So it's gonna be a great Sunday night of SHL hockey.
Yeah, of course, and a great week in general, but you just can't overlook those Sunday games without a doubt. And that will bring us to our offensive scoring game. We still don't have a name for it, I don't think. But so 2 weeks ago, I got the pick right. I had 2 games to pick from. This was a much more difficult selection for you, Dylan. I actually picked GBN and St. Viator, and the goalies kind of played good and let me down because I was expecting a lot of offense in that one, but only 4 total goals. Meanwhile, you picked one that went beyond regulation. That always helps. A 5-4 win for St. Ignatius over York on Saturday night. And that ended up being the highest scoring game of the week. So you do get the point, and now we're even at 1-1 for our call it super dog pick of the week or whatever. I get that from college game day. Super offense pick of the week. We'll think of a
Well,
real
Luke,
name
you know
later.
what? I did claim victory off camera earlier, but I'm actually going to go ahead and correct myself because,
Oh,
of course, earlier in the week, let me just go to my
Oh, and you know
Yeah.
what? Wasn't I think St. Ignatius and GBS, was that 9 or was that 8?
That was nine. Or no, that was
That was,
eight.
no, was it
No, that was
6-3?
nine. Six
Yeah,
to three. So
you get
it
half a
wasn't
point.
and it wasn't the highest scoring game of the week, but it was tied for the highest scoring game of the
Yes.
week. So according to the rules that we created, that gives me half a point. So I have not quite tied you up, but you do have a 1 to 0.5 lead over me. So that's where we stand right now. And we're looking to get back, uh, here at Camp Dillon, we're looking to get back into the win column, get a full point here, and take over Luke. And Luke, your host. That means I get first pick.
Yep, go
Give
ahead.
me, let me just look at these here. Give me St. Viator and York. I think York, high scoring game. That led to, my decision last week and ended up working out against St. Ignatius. St. Viator has been great offensively so far this season. So I'm going to take St. Viator and York on Friday night to be the highest scoring game of the week.
A lot I could pick from here. I think I'm going to personally go with, I think I'm going to go with New Trier and Stevenson. And that's not me ruling Stevenson out. I think that we kind of saw it in the New Trier GBN game that New Trier could be a safe pick for some of these offensive games. So I just feel like that one's calling my name. So, and
Fair
you
enough, man.
you said St. Viator and York, correct?
Correct.
Gotta make sure we write these down this time.
Yes.
So St. Viator York for Dylan, and I go with New Trier and Stevenson. Perfect. All right, we'll see who gets that one. We'll see if you jump ahead of me or if I get
Yeah.
a greater lead, or most likely maybe none of us get it right because who knows? The odds aren't in our favor, but we'll figure it out. That brings us to our question of the week and trivia question. On our last two segments, as we always are, it is the question of the week and trivia question for this week. Starting off with the question of the week, what non-SHL team has impressed you the most so far? And there's definitely a couple out there to select. I'm going to let Dylan go first while I honestly think further about mine.
All right, Luke. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and put my dibs, and I guess you can technically copy me if you want, but I'm gonna say the Deerfield Warriors. They had a really great preseason invitational tournament, being one of the teams to advance to the quarterfinals and be in that final eight out of 24 that began. They had a competitive game against New Trier Green until that third period where the Trevians started to string together some goals, and then in league play in the IHSHL North Central, four straight victories to begin the year over Yeti, Chicago North, Highland Park, and Ice Cats. They did end that losing streak with a 3-2 overtime loss against Prep, but overtime again. So they have at least a point in each of their first five games of league play. So, again, outside the SHL, it's always hard to kind of gauge where these teams sit in the overall state rankings. They're currently on my hockey rankings. They're ranked 20th, which I don't think is fair based on the
Yeah.
results they've had. But Deerfield, give me Deerfield as a team to look out for outside of the SHL.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm in between two, and I'm just gonna list them two. In my honorable mention, I got to go with Hinsdale Central. I mean, a 3-0 start in the West that is just such a deep conference is really impressive. And on the other end, another 3-0 team that didn't exist last year or the year before that or the year before that. How about the York Dukes girls team? I mean, they are
I
3
like
and 0
it.
right now in the Metro Girls Hockey League. And on top of that, they beat the defending state champions. And I know the tiering games aren't always spot on accurate. It's always full roster against full roster, and it was a forfeit. But in the other matters, they did beat Neighbor Valley. They beat Lincoln Way. Neighbor Valley was in the top division last year. It's a good start for the Dukes without a doubt, and I think they're going to be a team you're going to want to watch out for in the state race. So,
Yeah, first year of existence. I mean, that's huge. I know a lot of girls that went to York High School ended up playing for Fenwick's team
yeah.
in previous years. So to finally have their own identity and, put on the green sweater with the white Y and play at Addison Ice Arena like the boys team. And, I mean, geez, 3-0, not bad as a first year team.
Yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eye on the Sunday, November 30th matchup when they take on Barrington. That will be a fun one. But
Oh yeah.
along the rest of the way, they do not end up playing New Trier again. They didn't really get a true shot at them, but we'll see how they look down the line. And that brings us to our trivia question, where last week our trivia question was, when was the last time that Lake Forest beat New Trier in SHL play? And you have all been fooled if you really went digging on the web. Because it's never happened. Lake Forest has not been in the SHL that long. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dylan. 4 years, right?
This is their fourth. Yes.
It's taken a while, but they did get their first win this past week against New Trier in a 3-1 victory. So the answer was actually nada. Never happened.
Yeah.
So
Trick
now,
question for you folks. And you know, again, you're seeing these episodes on back-to-back days, so we really didn't get to trick a lot of you guys, but
yeah.
that yeah, that was our trivia. So, Luke, what is this week's trivia? I'm looking forward to it.
So it's one that you can find if you dig deep. I don't think it's a super tough one this week, but I might be wrong. Some people can't navigate the web as well as we do. What three teams have already had an individual scoring a hat trick this season? So there's 3 out of the 10 SHL teams have already involved hat tricks from individual players, and it's only in SHL play. What three teams are those? So and by the way, I gave a hint talking in our future games. I mentioned somebody had a hat trick, so
Sure you
think
did.
about that
You
one.
did.
There's 1 out of 3. So that'll do it on episode 5 here of the Scholastic Sit Down. We want to thank you as always for your support. It's always fun getting to interact with you guys, whether that's in person. Hey, you're the podcast guy, right, or whatever that may be, or even getting the rare comments we do online. But it's fun to be involved in this as always, and it's only going to keep ramping up from here, Dylan. Any final words?
Yeah, no doubt about that, Luke. And glad we're back to having a guest on the show this week as well with Sam Schwartz. That was a great talk with him. And yeah, we're gonna start getting to know some players here from various teams in the coming weeks on the podcast. And you know, Luke, I mean, yeah, this is episode number 5 and our 6th overall, including episode 0. But really, it's the first week of October, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, well said. So thank you guys. As always, we'll have some really big games to break down next week as we will see you then for episode number 6.
Game just this last weekend. That's what, week 3. So some teams had 6, 7 games done. 7 may be a lot. I may be off on that, but we had a lot of teams playing all sorts of different numbers of games. Stevenson played like 4 games in the first like 6 days of the season. Um, so I don't know what's so funny about that, Luke. Um,
6, 7,
anyway,
bro.
to answer
Oh,
the question,
yeah.
I actually just kind of did it by hand. Power ranking is more kind of who's playing the best hockey right
Cut,
now.
cut, cut. I can't post this.
Too long?
We
No.
had a 6, 7 in the wild. Oh my God.
Oh no. No. See, I don't even know it. You got to understand, my 6'7" is my number.
Oh my
A
God.
tribute to Vin Scully's 67 years. It's my Instagram.
Oh my
You don't
God,
know what
bro.
hell I've gone through.